My name is Dr. Alex British Chinedu Tasie. This is a continuation of the topic, the Ikwerre that you do not know where. We have a person like the late Chief Barrister Nwobidike Nwanode Sam from Rebisi Kingdom. The late Chief Barrister Nwobidike Nwanode Sam is a household name in Nigeria. He was an astute politician, and also a former member of the upper house of legislature. In the year of 1962, he contested an election against a candidate of the NCNC, the almighty NCNC, headed by Zik himself, against a man called the late Chief Elugwanono from Mbise, and won that election. He was the first Ikwerre person to become a lawyer. He was called to the British bar in the year of 1959. He is a respected Nigerian, lawyer and politician. The late Ohamak Aedimpa from Ishopo community is also a household name in Nigeria. The late Ohamak Aedimpa was the first Ikwerre person to go overseas for, academic studies. In the year of 1948, he proceeded to Leeds University, where he met, one of the strongest, biggest figures in Nigerian politics, called the late Alhaji Amadu Bello, the Sardauna of Sokoto, and the two of them read the same course and also graduated the same year. Ohamak Aedimpa read, local government administration and finance. When he came back to Nigeria, he joined Shell British Petroleum, and also became a recruitment officer. It is on record that Ohamak Aedimpa principally was the one that convinced the authorities of Shell BP to relocate its headquarters from Shell Camp Owerri to Port Harcourt City, where in erstwhile the late Chief Louis Ojukwu had affected the headquarters, of Shell BP at that time. So Ohamak Aedimpa convinced the authorities of Shell BP, that for the fact that Awaza oil fields, had been discovered and close to the ports, that it would be better to relocate the headquarters of Shell to Port Harcourt. And the authorities of Shell listened to him and did what he suggested. And Shell was moved to Port Harcourt. And that is why when you go to Shell Residential Area, RA in Port Harcourt, there's a hall there called Mark Dimpa Hall. That is in memory of the late, Ikwerre elder statesman, Ohamak Aedimpa, a respected figure, and also highly regarded by the late Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe, So he was also a powerful person that came out from, Ikwerre land. A person like the late Mr. John Emejuru Ohochukwu from Ishopo community, You know, he is a household name in Nigeria, a foremost educationist. You know, he became one of the first Nigerian set of students, you know, to enroll into the premier university called the University College of Ibadan in the year of 1948. When you get to Ishopo roundabout, you will see a man sculptured there, an image of a man wearing an academic gown. He is the late Mr. John Emejuru Owochukwu, you know, very brilliant, an Ikwerre person to be in that university even before the arrival of people like, you know, the late Professor Chinua Achebe and others, you know, there. Ohamak Aidemba became the first Ikwerre person, you know, to become a principal. And that was when he was the principal of County Grammar School, Ikwerre Eche, you know, in the 1950s. John Emejuru Owochukwu, you know, became the principal of County Grammar School, Ikwerre Eche, in the 1950s. He was a very powerful person, you know. The late Dr. Anthony Igom Owochukwu, the younger brother to the late Mr. John Emejuru Owochukwu, was also a big name. In fact, he became a medical doctor in Nigeria, you know, graduated as early as in the 1960s, you know, did his housemanship at Idiaraba, you know, and was about to finish his housemanship when he died. You know, when he died. A person like the late Justice Oroma Vincent Owochukwu from Ishopo community, you know, was also a big name in Nigeria from Ikwerre land. You know, he was the first Ikwerre person to become a judge and later rose to become a justice of a nation outside Nigeria called Kiribati, you know, Ireland. You know, he was also a pilot with the British military, you know, during that time. He was a prominent figure, you know. The late Chief E.A.D. Alekor, Chief Edward Alekor, was also a big name in Nigeria, you know. He started a newspaper publishing company in the 1950s, you know, took Ikwerre people to the Minority Rights Commission in Lagos State and protested that they are not Igbo people, you know. He was a big figure in Nigeria and in the world. Chief E.A.D. Alekor, as he was called, you know, a big politician, brought the late Chief Obafemi Awolowo, the Nigerian sage, to Ikwerre land. You know, Chief E.A.D. Alekor is a household name in the whole of Ikwerre land. He is from Ikwerre land. You know, a person like the late, you know, Senator Obi Wale from Rumuigbo community was a household name in Nigeria. You know, a scholar of note who taught at Harvard University in the United States of America. You know, an environmental activist, you know, became a senator when he came back from abroad. He joined politics. When He won. He became the chief minority whip of the Senate, and was called a genius by the late Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe. It is interesting to state here that the 1979 federal constitution that Nigeria uses, that Nigeria operates with, is a constitution that has an input from an Ikwerre person. The committee that was set up to draft the 1979 Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. It is interesting, to state here that an Ikwerre person was one of the committee members that drafted that constitution. It is very, 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 interesting to say that a person like the late Captain Ilichi Amadi from Alo community. Captain Ilichi Amadi, is a household name in Nigeria. Ilichi Amadi was an academic. He became an associate professor. He was a writer in residence, and also a soldier. It is interesting to know that among the series of the African Writers series, as published by Henneman, London, that an Ikwerre person has his interest, in that series, a person like the late Dr. Captain Ilichi Amadi from Alo community. It is interesting to state here that during my own time, and even before the period of my own time in secondary school, that there were two major novels that appeared in the exams, and they were The Things Fall Apart, written by the literary icon, the late Professor Chinua Achebe from Anambra State. And the next to follow, was The Concubine, written by an Ikwerre person, the late Dr. Captain Ilichi Amadi. After Things Fall Apart in Africa, the next book that follows is the Concubine. While Things Fall Apart, talks about the clash of cultures, between traditional culture and Western culture. The Concubine highlights, the work of astral powers, the work, of external forces, the forces of nature in determining what human beings, what mortals do on earth. An Ikwerre person. There is a person like the late Chief Eric Bekwele Aso from Elelemwo community. He is also a household name, an astute politician. The late Chief Eric Bekwele Aso, the proprietor of Eri Joy Hotels, at some point contested a major election in Nigeria to become the national chairman of a national party called at that time the Social Democratic Party. At the Just Convention, the late Chief Bekwele Aso would have won, that election if not for the gimmicks, if not for the intrigues, if not for the politics, that associated that election, of which politicians, especially from the western part of Nigeria, saw the party as their indigenous party and did not want, to get loose, of its control. If not for that, the late chief, Bekwele, Eric Assor would have emerged the national, chairman of SDP at that just convention. Chief Eric Assor is a household name in Nigerian politics. He is an Ikwerre person, an Ikwerre person, So Ikwerre people have been having wonderful people from the word go. It is interesting, to inform you here that two Ikwerre sons have at different points in time emerged as the national presidents of the Nigerian Bar Association, NBA, in the persons of Chief Barrister O.C.J. Okocha Sam from Roma Okolosi, in Okorono Odo, and Chief Barrister Okewale, Sam, I think from Roma Long, some say it's from Roma Elimini, but he is from Apo Kingdom, These two Ikwerre children have headed the Nigerian Bar Association at the national level. Imagine. An Ikwerre person has also emerged at some point in history as the Director General, of SSS, State, Security Service, during the time of the late Head of State, General Sani Abacha, an Ikwerre person headed the SSS, An Ikwerre person has also become the national president of the Nigerian Union of Journalists. I think one Ndaku or so from Obakere. That of Egatin Elenwo, who was, the Director General of XSS, also hailed from Obakere, of Ikwerre land, We cannot also forget, people like Linus Awude. Linus Awude is from Ndele. At some point, he became the Federal Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Health in Nigeria. He is from Ndele. We have Chief Samson Abaru from Ndele too, who at some point was the Pro-Chancellor of the University of Jos. He is from Ikwerre land. A person like Professor G.O.M. Tasie from Ishopo community was at some point, the Vice Chancellor of the University of Jos, a federal university, an Ikwerre person. Look at a tiny community, tiny place, tiny ethnic nationality of just 4 local government areas, what it is churning out, what it has churned out in the past, and the people that it has churned out generally. A small place like that, in the area of sports, there's one Mr. Stephen Wall from Obunabale. At some point, he became the highest goal scorer, of CAF competition when he was plying his trade with Eimba Football Club of Aba. He was the highest goal scorer in CAF competition, and Ikwerre person, in the area of entertainment, Ikwerre people have also produced wonderful people, they like Mr. Julius Agun from Choba community. Mr. Julius Agun is one of the pioneers of what we call today stand-up comedy in Nigeria. He was also one of the pioneers of what we call today Nollywood in Nigeria. He is also a musician. He is a household name in the entertainment industry. He is from Ikwerre land. We have Mona Lisa Chinda from Ikwerre land. We have Tonto Dike from Ikwerre land. These are wonderful people. We have Duncan Mighty from Rumeme Kingdom in Ikwerre land. We have Omale Didia from Ebeda. We have MKs from, Rumeme. These are wonderful Ikwerre people. In the pageantry industry, we have an Ikwerre woman that has won the Miss Nigeria and the Miss Africa Pageantry Award in the person of, Miss Akalachi Robinson from Iba community. What about a person like Miss Mercy Chinwo, who won the Nigerian Idol? What about a person like Mr. Marvin Wardo, who featured, in the Big Brother Africa, the higher version of Big Brother Niger, as a housemate from Ishopo community? These are Ikwerre people, a tiny place, a tiny ethnic nationality in Nigeria with wonderful people from the beginning of time. In the area of business, we have a person that we call Anambra, simply with the name Anambra, and he is a person like, Chief Nchile from Ropoko, who emerged as a big-time business person, like the Anambra people. We have a person like the late His Royal Majesty, Eze Omunakwe Nsirim, the Apit one of Rumeme Kingdom, who was the first Nigerian, to start a dredging company, the first Nigerian to begin a dredging company. He was also an astute politician, rose to become, the national treasurer of MPN, in those days. The late Chief, Samuel Obodoho Amadi from Ishopo called Chief SO, who had a company called Malena Construction Company. He was also a powerful figure in Nigeria. He was highly respected. Eze SO Amadi also created so much wealth, with his company. Highly respected. He was one of those invited, when Prince Charles married, Diana Foster or whatever in the year of, I think, the 1980s. So he was an important Ikwerre chief, Chief S.O. Amadi, from Ikwerre land. From Ikwerre land. You see, we have so many people all in the area of theology. Bishop Elemo from Obakri Late is a household name in the Anglican Church of Nigeria. Today we have a person like Reverend, I don't know how they call it, but I know Bishop, but he's now higher than that of a bishop. Blessing, Enyinda from Omerelu community, today, who is the number second person in the Anglican Church in the whole of Nigeria. He is an important person in Nigeria, and I was some point the Secretary General of the Scriptural Union of Nigeria, in Nigeria, an Ikwerre person. These are wonderful, wonderful people. You know, I want to remember a person like His Royal Majesty Oha Chidi Sergeant Awuse, you know, who was at some point the national chairman of, you know, Federal Airport Authority of Nigeria, FAN. You know, he was the national chairman of FAN, and Ikwerre person. What of a person like the late Chief Barrister, Ambassador, Chief Ambassador Ignatius Ajoro, you know, the late Chief Ambassador Ignatius Hekerim Ajoro from Ishoko community, you know, what was at some point, you know, an ambassador, a federal ambassador of two nations, you know, of the world, the nation of Gabon in Africa and the nation of Ukraine. You know, he was a very highly respected diplomat from Ikwerre land. You know, a person like Chief Mrs. Eunice Igwe from Ishopo community at some point became, you know, Federal INEC commissioner that delivered 2 states, you know, in their state elections. The state of Adamawa, you know, and that of Imo State. He delivered Atiku Abubakar, you know, when he contested as governor, and also delivered, you know, Achike Udemwa, you know, of Imo State when he contested his gubernatorial election. An Ikwerre person, you know, an Ikwerre person. Look at all that I'm reading out just from 4 local government areas. What of a person like Dr. Alex British Chinedu Tasie from Ishopo community, who halted his university education to make a mark as the first Nigerian to author 10 books without a university degree. You know, and a Nigerian without a university degree, that 2 of his history books, you know, were, you know, brought into a federal university for lecturing. He is from Ishopo, you know, in Ikwerre land. There are so many people that have emerged, you know, from Ikwerre land, from different areas. I cannot remember all of them. People like Chief Ken Wong, Ken Quip, you know, one of those that established the biggest oil servicing companies in Nigeria, called OIS. OIS was a very big company, you know, oil servicing company in Nigeria. He is from Omwama community, you know. From about the year of 1959 to about the year of 1962, you know, Ikwerre people produced about 5 to 6, you know, lawyers, you know, from abroad. Like Wobidike Wanode, Richard Walker, Vincent Oloma Wachuku, Orabule Adele, you know, all these lawyers, you know, were called to bar from the period of 1959 to about 1962. You know, they are all big people. Richard Walker is from Elele community. Orabule Adele is from Rumelumeni community. You know, Vincent Oloma Wachuku is from Ishopo community. You know, a person like Brigadier Ama from Obakere, who became the first Ikwerre person to become a brigadier general in the Nigerian army. You know, he is from Obakere, an Ikwerre person. There's a person like Commodore Chimampi from Ishopo, who retired as a commodore, in the Nigerian Navy, from Ishokpo community. A person like Pastor Shengu Wigwe. Pastor Shengu Wigwe is from Ishokpo community. At some point, he became the National Director General of the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA. He is the father of the late Dr. Herbert Wigwe of Access Bank. His father is a household name. A person like